If you're experiencing thoughts of self-harm or suicide, please contact a mental health professional immediately or call a crisis helpline. What follows is educational content about psychological theory, not medical advice. What if the depression that's been crushing your spirit isn't actually an enemy to be defeated, but a messenger carrying crucial information about your life? What if the very thing you've been trying to eliminate is actually your psyche's desperate attempt to communicate something vital that your conscious mind refuses to hear? Carl Jung, the pioneering Swiss psychiatrist, held a revolutionary view that contradicted nearly everything the medical establishment believed about depression. While others saw it as pure pathology to be medicated away, Jung recognized depression as one of the most important communications the human psyche can send. He observed that depression often emerges precisely when someone's life has become fundamentally misaligned with their authentic nature. Jung didn't romanticize depression or suggest people should suffer needlessly. Instead, he recognized that beneath the crushing weight of depressive episodes often lay profound wisdom about necessary life changes, unlived potential, and suppressed aspects of personality demanding recognition. Depression as messenger. Jung observed that depression rarely arrives without reason, though its logic operates beneath conscious awareness. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are." Depression often emerges when this privilege has been systematically denied or abandoned. The depressive episode functions like a psychological fever, an uncomfortable but necessary process that signals something fundamental needs attention. Just as physical pain alerts us to bodily damage, depression alerts us to psychological damage. The mistake most people make is treating the messenger instead of listening to the message. Jung noticed that depression frequently coincided with major life transitions, career dissatisfaction, relationship breakdowns, or periods when people felt trapped in inauthentic roles. Rather than seeing these as coincidences, he recognized them as the psyche's response to living in ways that violated core psychological needs. The unconscious mind, Jung theorized, maintains a complete picture of who someone truly is, including unlived potentials, suppressed desires, and authentic values. When conscious life diverges too far from this inner blueprint, the unconscious sends increasingly urgent signals. Consider how many people report that their depression lifted only after making major life changes, leaving unfulfilling careers, ending toxic relationships, or pursuing previously ignored creative interests. Jung would argue that depression was the messenger pushing toward these necessary transformations. Pay attention to what thoughts, memories, or desires emerge during depressive episodes. Often, these contain clues about the life changes your psyche is demanding. The compensation theory. Jung's theory of compensation suggests that the psyche constantly seeks balance. When conscious attitudes become too one-sided, the unconscious produces compensatory content to restore equilibrium. Depression often represents this compensatory mechanism taken to extremes. Jung explained in Psychological Types, the unconscious compensates the conscious attitude, and when this attitude is excessive, produces a counterposition which is equally excessive. Someone who lives in a hyperactive, achievement-oriented manner might experience depression as the psyche's attempt to force rest and reflection. Modern culture particularly creates conditions ripe for compensatory depression. Society rewards certain traits, productivity, optimism, social conformity, while pathologizing their opposites. People learn to suppress aspects of themselves that don't fit cultural ideals, creating psychological imbalances that eventually demand correction. The compensation theory explains why some depressions resist traditional treatment. Antidepressants might temporarily suppress symptoms, but if the underlying psychological imbalance remains unaddressed, the depression often returns. Jung argued that lasting healing requires recognizing and integrating whatever aspects of personality have been suppressed. Notice what depression makes impossible in your life. These might be the very activities your psyche needs you to abandon. Notice what becomes more appealing during depressive episodes. These might point toward neglected aspects of your authentic nature. When your soul rebels. Jung made a crucial distinction between personal and impersonal depression. Personal depression relates to specific circumstances. Impersonal depression connects to what Jung termed the soul, the deeper aspects of human nature that transcend individual psychology. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Soul-level depression emerges when someone's entire life structure violates their deepest nature. Soul rebellion often manifests as a pervasive sense of meaninglessness that no external achievement can touch. Someone might have success, relationships, and security, yet feel completely empty inside. Traditional approaches often fail here because they address symptoms rather than the soul's revolt against an inauthentic existence. The soul rebels against lives built on external expectations rather than inner truth. It refuses to participate in performances that betray core values. It withdraws energy from activities that feel meaningless regardless of how successful they appear to others. This type of depression can't be cured through lifestyle changes because it's responding to internal betrayal, the betrayal of one's authentic nature in service of social acceptability. Listen to what feels meaningless in your life, even if it appears successful from the outside. Your soul might be withdrawing energy from activities that no longer serve your authentic development. The creative illness. Jung introduced the concept of creative illness, a specific type of psychological crisis that precedes major creative or spiritual breakthroughs. Unlike pathological depression, creative illness serves a transformative function, breaking down outdated psychological structures to make room for new development. Jung experienced his own creative illness between 1913 and 1917, a period he later called his confrontation with the unconscious. During this time, he experienced severe depression-like symptoms. Yet this period proved to be the most creatively fertile of his life. Creative illness often affects individuals who have outgrown their current psychological framework, but haven't yet developed a new one. The old personality structure can no longer contain their expanding consciousness, creating temporary but intense psychological chaos. This type of depression often feels different from ordinary sadness. People report feeling like they're dissolving or losing their sense of identity. While frightening, these symptoms often indicate that rigid psychological boundaries are softening to allow for transformation. Recognize creative illness by its timing. It often follows periods of intense growth and typically carries undertones of excitement despite the suffering. Decoding your depression. Jung believed that depression speaks in symbolic language that requires interpretation rather than elimination. Learning to decode depression's messages transforms it from meaningless suffering into meaningful communication. Start by examining what depression makes impossible. If it prevents social interaction, consider whether you've been over-functioning socially. If it blocks productivity, examine whether you've been using busyness to avoid inner reflection. Next, notice what emerges during depressive episodes. Do certain memories surface repeatedly? Do specific desires feel more appealing? Jung viewed these emergent contents as messages from the unconscious about needed psychological adjustments. Pay attention to the quality of your depression. Does it feel heavy and stuck, suggesting resistance to necessary change? Does it feel empty and hollow, suggesting disconnection from authentic meaning? Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "Your vision becomes clear when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Depression often forces this inward looking by making external distractions unbearable. Consider what your depression might be protecting you from. Sometimes depression serves as a psychological cocoon, creating necessary isolation during vulnerable transformation periods. Most importantly, approach your depression with curiosity rather than judgment. Jung observed that symptoms often contain the seeds of their own healing when properly understood. Depression isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's the most honest friend you have, forcing you to confront what your conscious mind refuses to see. Your depression might be the most important message you'll ever receive. The question isn't how to silence it, but whether you're ready to listen.